Well, what's up, guys? Hey, thank you again for listening to our Extra with LifePoint podcast. We appreciate all of you that listen every single week. What we do during this time is we come with whoever was speaking on the Sunday morning service, and we just get a little bit of extra from them in their message. And today, Mike Howerton, Pastor Mike, preached this morning, and it was, from what I heard, a very practical message about conflict. I know, I just had my 3rd year marriage anniversary, and I feel like this would have been one of the messages that would have been nice to listen to my 1st year of marriage. So
you've got a lot of years left, man. This is still, it's going to be relevant.
My wife
Trust me.
she's texting me, I need to watch it tonight. So appreciate that, Mike.
Yeah, of course.
But we have a couple questions that we want to ask just to get a little bit of extra for our listeners.
Okay.
And in your message, you shared 4 predictors of negative conflict: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And I just want to know, which one do you think is more seen often in relationships? And what's the first step to overcoming it?
Yeah, they're incredible predictors, and they really are about what will happen. If you pivot into those spaces, it's a predictor of how conflict resolution will go for you.
Okay.
So if you pivot into criticism, if you pivot into contempt, if you pivot into defensiveness or stonewalling, if that's sort of the default that you figured out growing up, if that was modeled in your family, then those things are going to be negatively positioned against resolution for you.
Yeah.
The question, Colin, you ask is like, which one do you see the most in relationships? I actually think that the one that is the most prevalent is defensiveness. And the reason why I think that is because it's a very natural self-deception for us to think when we're in an argument that we're the innocent and the other person is the instigator or the guilty party. And I've even thought like I'm angelic in an argument and my wife's demonic. You know what I mean? Like you can literally like move into that space, but it's just it's not true. It's not based on any objective reality. It's sort of a deception that the enemy might be able to pull over our eyes. And so I think that's the most prevalent to be aware of. When, if you're familiar with the Gottman Institute, which they do a ton of great research on how to have healthy marriages, healthy relationships, and they're people of faith as well. So it's a fantastic institute to do additional research in. They actually say that contempt is the death knell for long-term relationships. So if your pivot is to contempt, which is like superiority, scorn, disgust, like the other person disgusts you, or they have these like, all you can see is their massive personality flaws. If that's where you pivot, then there's really not a whole lot of long-term hope until you change your default.
Right. Yeah. So it comes back to us on our own.
Always.
Okay. Yeah.
So by the way, Colin, the message, and I share this, it's for the person listening. It's not for the person listening's spouse.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That does
so of
make
course
sense.
I want the spouse to listen and apply it as well.
Yeah.
But you can never, on a message like this, it's like I take notes so that I can apply these things. Not I take notes so that I can hand my notes to my wife and let her do it.
Right. 100%. Yeah. No. I recall back, I think it was last week, Pastor Lance Watson preached on a similar thing, but used an analogy of like playing on the basketball court. And I think it might have been a Pee Wee team. I don't know. You guys might have to go back and listen to the previous sermon. But 2 boys on the same basketball team were like fighting over the basketball.
Hey, same team.
Yeah.
Hey,
Coach
same team.
Same team.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think a lot of us, I'm guilty of this, where it's like you're fighting, but when one of you wins, you have to realize that your spouse is the one that loses.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's
Pastor Lance did such a great job last week. That was a great analogy too.
Yeah.
And the idea is, if you realize that you're on the same team, you can start changing what you're fighting for. Right? So instead of fighting against, now you're fighting for some things, and then trying to define, what are we fighting for here? That can be really powerful in conflict resolution.
So second question here, you mentioned the 2 playing fields: technical, which is more focused on maybe like delivery, and relational, which is more focused on the emotional side. How can people recognize when they're neglecting the emotional side, and what's a simple way to maybe recalibrate that?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and I want to actually speak to men first because I feel like this is a powerful thing that can resonate deeply, and then we'll maybe try to just put it gender neutral for everyone, right? But the idea is, guys, you already sort of pivot towards delivery. Results, or like, let's just say logic and functionality. All of that stuff falls on the result side, the delivery side.
Yeah.
So in a marriage, let me just say, guys, if you're not showing up and you're not contributing financially, if you're not helping pay the bills, if you're not participating in household chores or parenting actively, proactive parenting, like that would be the delivery side of marriage, if that makes sense. So of course, let's show up well on delivery. And then the recognition is, how do you recognize if you're missing the emotional, relational side of the thing? Just do a little self-analysis every once in a while when it comes to you and your spouse. Are you showing up out of duty or are you showing up out of delight? Right? Because we just had Valentine's Day. So you could imagine maybe going to Safeway, buying a bouquet of flowers, coming home, throwing them at your wife and saying, here, it's Valentine's Day. I got this for you.
Take it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've done the delivery, but you've missed the relationship. Does that make sense?
That's good. Yeah.
So the idea is you need to understand that both of these things are always going to be at play. We can never get past, like you can never deliver past having to do the relationship. And by the way, there are plenty of people that I've worked with that do great relationally, but their delivery's bad, right? So then the idea is, oh man, he's a sweetheart, he's so loving, he's so caring, he's always doting on me, but doesn't have a job, doesn't contribute financially, doesn't parent the kids, you see what I mean? It's like, no.
The actions aren't backing it up.
You've got to have both of these playing fields going at the same time.
100%. Yeah, that's good. And lastly here, we have small groups meeting this week. And for those of you that are listening that are not in a small group, we highly encourage you to check out on our website. We have so many small groups. But a lot of our small groups are sermon-based discussion groups. So they're going to be looking back over your message. And I just want to know, maybe for those groups that are listening, what's one extra thing that you hope that they discuss?
Yeah. So in the message, I share, when I talk about like forward-facing and solution-making moving forward, I drop a quote, and it's a statistic that's roughly 70% of all issues within marriage are perpetual. So in other words, they're not one-offs to solve. They're just a perpetual tension that you're going to have to manage. And what I'd like to challenge is, so first off, in your groups, I think it's worth talking about that and maybe identifying some of those perpetual issues, right? And I mean, really easily, I would just tell you, just do a quick mental inventory and go, oh, we've had so many conversations about X. That's got to be a perpetual issue, right? But one of the things that I really want to encourage you guys to talk about is this. Just because it's a tension to manage doesn't mean it's negative. So for example, I want you to think about a guitar string for a moment on a guitar. It's in tension. And that's what tuning is, right? Is you tune it so that it's actually in perfect tension. And there, if there's one point here, let's just say the wife, one point here, that's the husband. And if you can tune that issue into perfect tune, then you can play a beautiful melody together. Like, in other words, it's just about understanding and knowing, oh, this is how we're going to manage this together. Then all of a sudden you can make beautiful music. So that's really what we want to go after when it comes to managing tension.
That's good. Yeah, because the reality is that there's never not going to be some type of tension.
That's right.
And people maybe think that the answer is like, no tension, everything's great.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is funny. And honestly, there are some of these families at Life Point, and I just want to say God bless you. But I even heard today, like, I've been married for 20 years. I think my wife and I have had like maybe one argument. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God bless you. That's fantastic. And I throw up a little bit in my mouth because that's not been my experience. You know, I haven't had that. My wife and I are just too fiery, and that's just not what life looks like for us. And so, but the idea is that's not, I don't think that's the picture that Jesus wants for us in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the people who aren't fighting about anything, they're letting all kinds of unresolved realities just, under the surface fester.
Yes.
And I don't think that's necessarily healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't think that allows us to move into wholeheartedness. So the idea that I'm pitching in this message is that by moving through conflict in a way that honors Christ, we actually build intimacy and we are enjoying this authentic, integrous relationship more and more.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Mike, thank you again for coming and hanging out with us.
Absolutely,
giving us a little
Colin.
extra to your message. We really appreciate it.
Right on. Well, thank you very much. God bless you, LifePoint.
Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our Extra with LifePoint episodes.